Well, hello there, and welcome once again to another episode of Product Conversations. The guest that we're going to have on today, I'm really excited about. He has got almost 40 years experience in the Jan/San industry. He has served as a sales rep for the grocery, food service, industrial, office, and retail channels. He has been a sales manager and a division manager for a large national distribution company. And he also, in 2012, became the owner and president of Legends Marketing. But I know for him, the most important title that he has is Papaw for 9 grandkids. 7 of those kids are my very own kids. So I'd like to welcome joining us today, my dad, Dan Hauk. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. We're going to be talking about something that I know everyone is really thinking hard about, and that is how we clean our facilities. Probably, truth be told, we should have been cleaning our facilities a lot better than we were cleaning them prior to the COVID-19 outbreak. But now this has really brought a spotlight onto how we're cleaning our facilities. And so I'd like to just spend the next few minutes talking about your knowledge and what you've really dug into on how people should be cleaning. And this can help the end users who are actually doing the cleaning, but also for distributors who may be listening today. It's really good for them to understand what processes that the CDC recommends should be taken for proper cleaning and disinfecting of different facilities, so that they can take that knowledge to their end user customers. So tell me a little bit, when we talk about cleaning and disinfecting, and you also hear the word sanitizing, what's the difference between those 3 things? Cleaning, disinfecting, sanitizing. Let's start there.
Okay. Cleaning is your first step always. Which this is usually the first step is what trips most people up. They don't understand that you cannot clean and disinfect at the same time. They feel like, a lot of people in this industry, all the way down to the end user, feels like if they clean, then they have disinfected. You have to remove all the dirt, the particles, the germs, the impurities, everything that you're cleaning. Let's say that desktop that you're using today. It may not look dirty. You may have cleaned it last night, but you've used it some today. So it has all kinds of fingerprints on it. It has your day timer there, your coffee cup, your glasses. Everything's on that desk now. So if you don't remove everything off that desk and clean it, then those little the viruses that are on it, which they're all over the place, they like to run when you start to clean. So if you just use a disinfectant as a cleaner, then what they do is they hide under all that dirt. So you have the little germs tend to run under the dirt. So what the CDC recommends is soap and water. You just take soap and water and you clean everything down. And then you go to if you're disinfecting something, you want to go to your disinfectant, read the label, find out what the dwell time is, which we call it the wet time. Find out how long does that have to sit to stay wet in order to kill the germs, the viruses, the bacteria, everything you're trying to kill has a certain time span. And all the disinfectants are different today. So that's primary, number one.
And I want to stop you there. And I know it's halfway into your answer, but I think it's really important to take a minute to really focus on how important the dwell time is. Because what we see happen a lot is people spray on a disinfectant,
right,
and then they immediately take a towel and wipe it off. And they have not let that disinfectant sit on the surface for any length of time. And therefore, it's really been a waste of the product. So how important really is that dwell time?
The dwell time is the most important part. And you have to know what your dwell time is. It's on the back of the label. if you look at the back of the product, you see the label. It tells you what the dwell time is, the kill claims, and the dwell time. So depending on what you're trying to kill, has different dwell times. So let's say with COVID-19, there are kill claims from 10 minutes down to 1 minute. So if it doesn't stay wet, if your intent is to kill the COVID-19 virus, and that doesn't stay wet, let's say the wipe that you're talking about, if that area doesn't stay wet for 10 minutes, you haven't killed the COVID-19. You got it wet, but then you dried it off. So, basically that little virus is still running around your desk or on your door handles or, on your phones, wherever you may want to try to clean to disinfect, it's still there if you don't allow enough wet time.
Okay, so then let's jump back into the first part of the question, which was, disinfecting and sanitizing. We hear those terms used interchangeably, but there are some nuanced differences between the two. So explain that to us.
Sanitizing kills certain bacteria and certain viruses. Sanitizing is primarily used for a quick just wipe off type scenario, but a sanitizer is not designed to eliminate most of the viruses that we're referring to here.
Okay, so it helps, but it's not as effective as true disinfecting, utilizing the kill claims and all the things that we've just talked about.
Right, and you can really get deep in the weeds with the sanitizing versus disinfectant.
Sure.
A sanitizer is used a lot of times around food situations, restaurants, the tabletop where they're preparing the food, that has to be sanitized. In some situations, disinfected, primarily if you're around a lot of chicken. But that's where you really got to understand what you're dealing with, what the viruses are, and what the bacteria that you're trying to eliminate.
Let's take this into practical application now. Take us through the process. Let's say, you see my background here, right? I've got a pretty typical setup, a desk, keyboard, mouse, got some soft surfaces behind me. What would someone do if they were walking into this room, and how would they properly clean and disinfect a typical environment?
Well, it's always best to start at the top and work your way down. So the first thing you're going to do is go through there and you're going to dust. Dust has, you're going to use probably a microfiber cloth is what we recommend, because it actually captures the dust. It doesn't put it into the air. So first of all, you got to get rid of the dust. Secondly, you're going to have to clean everything in that room that has been touched, which is probably just about everything in there. All your door handles, your drawer handles, your keyboard, your screens, everything. So that's why they recommend soap and water. All you're doing is cleaning here. Okay, you're not trying to kill anything. You're trying to clean everything. So once you get done cleaning everything, and then you get to your vacuum cleaner, first of all, we recommend you check the filter in your vacuum cleaner. A lot of them have HEPA filters, which are great. But if they have gathered up 30, 40, 50 days worth of dust, now you got dust mites. So you're spreading these dust mites all over the place as you turn on that vacuum. And some of them may, depending on the life cycle of the COVID-19, it may have some of the COVID-19 particles within that filter. So if it's not a clean filter, then you need to replace the filter, replace the bag, then you clean the floor. The last thing you're going to do there is you're going to disinfect everything. So you go through, and let's say, we have product anywhere from 1 minute to 10-minute kill claim. So let's just assume you're going to use the 10-minute dwell time. You're going to have to go through there and make sure that everything that gets touched, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do the floors, you don't have to do, but wherever you have most of the touching going on, you should disinfect. So you need to go from the furthest corner of the room all the way as you're working your way out. And that product has to stay wet in order to kill the COVID-19 for 10 minutes. There's other products do it for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, depending on whatever product you're using. So you got to adhere to that. But that's the most important part.
Okay, that's really, really great information. One thing that I heard though that when you were talking that just brought up a question in my mind was probably the highest touch surface in any office environment is this guy right here, the keyboard. But this is obviously an electronic component. I don't want to dump water on this and soap. Yet that's what's being recommended. So for electronics, what do you recommend there?
That is probably the number one carrier. The electronics, back before COVID-19, we all travel, salespeople. And the thing that you first grab a hold of in a hotel room is remote control. The remote controls, the keyboards, your phones, they are the most infected product that you have and you use consistently. So what we recommend for keyboards, phones, etc., is that you go through and you get a microfiber cloth, a little soap and water on it. You wring it so there's not dripping water. You can go through and wipe it down, and then you can go through with you can spray a little of your disinfectant on there and wipe it down with that microfiber cloth.
So spray the cloth itself, not spraying onto the keyboard or what have you. But so take a microfiber cloth that's damp but not dripping, and clean it, and then spray your disinfectant on a different microfiber cloth.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
Okay.
Now you should never cross-contaminate cloths. So one should be for cleaning if you're doing this way, and then you're using the other one for the keyboard for disinfecting. You should have two different color cloths for that. So a lot of people use the red, for disinfecting, isolation. Red is serious, so they use red for that. Greens, green's easier. It's a little softer. Some use yellow. But you should use a color coding system in place, and you also need to read the instructions on when you. And most of us don't do this. I don't do this. I don't think most people do this. But you should read the instructions on how do you clean your keyboard. What are they recommending? If they're recommending a wet wipe, then you go with what they recommend. But with all that said, you're not going to eliminate the good and bad news is you're not going to eliminate all the viruses from the phones, the keyboard, your mouse, if you're using a mouse, because as soon as your hands touch something, then you've transferred those viruses to the next thing your hands touch. So that's why it's very important. If you look at our CDC list that we put together, it's constantly telling you to wash your hands with soap and water and for 20 seconds plus. And so because every time it's impossible to live in a sterile world. So the real key here is to wash your hands 20 seconds or more with soap and water and keep your hands away from your face. Because if you try to go through the day with your hands in your pocket, it's impossible. You've got to use your hands. So those hands that are there, they're touching everything. You got to keep them away from your face and wash them as often as possible.
It's funny because it's so simple, really. It is. Our hands are the most likely to transfer viruses because they are the primary thing that we touch everything with our hands. And then those very hands that touch all these germ-laden surfaces, then, take a handful of almonds and pop them in our mouth and, then transfer those viruses right into our body. So I'm glad you brought that up. We can get really focused on all of the cleaning and the disinfecting and what products and what towels and the dwell time and all this stuff. But if we just keep recontaminating those very surfaces that we've just cleaned with filthy hands, and even if they're not visibly soiled, viruses aren't visible. So we've got to, and hand washing is absolutely the most effective way to get viruses off your hands. Is that right?
That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And you can watch this whole thing play out. like you said, I think at the very start, we should have known this. We should have talked about this. We should have been teaching this for the last 30, 40 years. So if you really start thinking about it, you can really get wrapped up in it like, well, that means I can't leave this little 10 by 10 room. Yeah. That's not true. You just got to make sure that you understand what you're dealing with here. Make sure you clean properly, disinfect properly, wash your hands, and keep them away from your face. Stay healthy. And I think you're going to find out that most of us are going to get through any kind of a virus situation like we're in today.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot of really great information, a lot of things to think about. Some of it that we've been hearing, but to take the time to really delve into it like you have today with us, I think that's really going to be valuable to a lot of people. I know I've learned a lot. Thank you very much for your time. I think we'll wrap up for today, but I really do appreciate the time that you've given me.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Well, if you would like more information on anything that we've discussed today, feel free to reach out, email, phone call, any of the social media that you follow me on. I'd be happy to share any information that I can with you and help you in any way possible. Thank you for once again joining us on another episode of Product Conversations, and I hope you have a great day.